Renee, I wanted to ask you a little bit about when and how running came into your life.
So I really started to run when I was in high school. I joined cross country team and track team and started, hurdling actually, which was very bad for someone who's of my stature because I'm short. And then I switched to long distance, and that was where I started to really succeed. And then I just, the rest of my life, I've had this really great relationship with running. Physically, for me, it does a lot of good.
And is it something that you do with friends and family?
Yes, I actually, every place that I've ever lived, I've looked for a running group. They tend to be a really great bunch of people. So I love, especially when you're running long distance, running with a group. And I also have a lot of fun running with my kids.
You have taken on a running project for yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I have several. So give me a little.
Well, I know that you're running a series of half marathons.
Yes. So a couple of years ago, I noticed that I had been to several different states and run half marathons. And there was a group that of runners who run a half marathon in every state. So I joined that group and started down that pathway. And I'm at state 21. Had to take a bit of a break because of COVID, but hoping to get back on it next year.
And what will it mean to you when you kind of complete this challenge?
So I think there's the satisfaction of, physically running that many half marathons, but really why I wanted to do it was to see my country. It's been wonderful to take these little trips, a couple days, you're in that area, you get to see some things, meet people. And also at the same time, you're meeting all these other people who are interested in seeing the country. So it's been a lot of fun.
When did you first become aware that Tuckahoe had its own Tuckahoe Challenge road race?
So I moved to the village in 2015. And one of the first things I did was on the village website, there was a little application you could fill out if you're interested in becoming involved in the community. And I did that. I checked off one of the boxes, which was for the library. And the library director reached out to me, as well as another neighbor, Ginger Crosby. And I became involved with the library and Friends of the Library. And one of the things, I guess, that was part of what the Friends of the Library had in their fundraising plan was getting part of the proceeds from the Tuckahoe Challenge road race. So when those folks found out that I was a runner, they asked if I would mind helping out with that race. And so in 2017, I think was the first time I helped out with the Tuckahoe Challenge.
And then at what point during the past couple of years did you begin to have a vision for what this race could become, and how did you make the decision to become race director?
So I think when the race started, and it was the 45th year that we just ran, so it's been going on for quite some time. It was started by a bunch of runners in the village, and then maybe in the past couple years, it had no real director that was from the village, and it was being led by John Galluzzi, who is our recreation
extraordinaire,
director. And it was hard for him to do that particular event by himself. There's a lot that has to happen. And so I came in and slowly took up some tasks in 2017 and 2018. And then in 2019, I decided to take over the race director position. There were so many things that we decided to change to get more people to participate. One of them was we were taking applications of people who wanted to run in the race only by paper. So we switched over to a really great piece of software on the internet called Run Sign Up, so people could sign up immediately online. And we are now, after a couple of years of using that, almost exclusively people use that path rather than sending in a paper application with a check. The other thing we were doing was the timing system we were using was kind of like what was used in the 1970s and 80s, where there'd be a person with a clipboard, and as you came in, they would record your number, the number of your bib. And we switched that over to electronic timing. And that was a big breakthrough, in part because at the end of the race, you had your results and people didn't have to wait an hour for that to be manually tallied.
Right. And do you also think that some of these innovations have attracted not only more runners from the community, but more people who are competitive runners in the area?
Definitely. I mean, the heart and soul of the race is to be a community event. So we're not necessarily touting it to, super competitive runners, but we did have noticed that, once we had gone electronic, that we got a lot more people coming in from running clubs. So a lot of people from Van Cortlandt Track Club, which is a big track club, participate. And I think that might also be because once you go electronic, you start to be picked up by all these running clubs and race sites. So more people find out about it. We are also really accessible by train, so we started to push that. And people come in from the city to run, and people come from Connecticut to run. They just take the train. They could walk right to the start of the race.
How many people raced this year in 2021?
So we had 426.
That's amazing. What was the grand tally before expenses of the funds that you raised?
So it was $30,000.
That is quite impressive.
Yeah, we had just, a lot of people run. We had great sponsorship in both terms of people giving us straight, cash, but as well as in-kind donations as well.
Renée, you mentioned that the Friends of the Library had on their radar getting into the mix in terms of being recipients of some of the race proceeds. This year, it was both the Friends of the Library and also the Village Beautification Committee that benefited. And can you just talk a little bit about the process of how these beneficiaries get identified, and a little bit also about what the Beautification Committee is and does and how they may use some of the proceeds?
Sure. Since the race is sponsored by the village, there's, a desire for that money to come back into the village. The Beautification Committee is, they do just a tremendous amount of work. They are responsible for the flowers that you see hung up in baskets all throughout the village. At different times of year, at the holidays, they'll put up wreaths. They also are very active in designing parks. So we don't have necessarily a lot of park space in Tuckahoe, but we have a lot of these cute little pocket parks. There's one down by Crestwood. They're working on another one down by the Bronx River. And these are just really, really lovely places to sit and chat. And I always see people sitting, drinking coffee, talking to each other. So I think they're very successful. And Beautification Committee has also done monuments. So the one at the library for former Mayor Phil White. They are helping to work on the one that's going up near the Tuckahoe train station that will recognize the borough's welcome building that used to be, which is now Riverview Condominium, and the history there. And that was where the village got money from the taking down of the smokestack that was there, which was a historical landmark. And
for anyone who doesn't know exactly what the Friends of the Library is about, the Friends are a 501c3 nonprofit that raises money for library programming, among other things. There are always supplemental programs and specialists that we want to have come in and offer knowledge, expertise, entertainment to the community, both in person and, of course, online. And the library staff coordinate all of that. But the Friends, along with other local funders, really help drive the engine of the programming side of the budget. And that's why it is really important. And that's why we were very grateful and honored to receive $8,000 as part of the proceeds from the 45th annual Tuckahoe Challenge. So on behalf of everyone in the Friends, we really thank you for your work, for all of the time and the love and care that you put into continuing this tradition and really expanding it into a place that is both welcoming to the community and now becoming like a fundraising powerhouse for the village.
So my pleasure. I had a great committee, a lot of folks who help out to make that successful, and we're happy to do it. The Friends of the Library is a great group.
The other day when you generously presented us with the check, you mentioned that you are committed to getting the Tuckahoe Challenge to its 50th anniversary. Is there anything that you would like to say about what's going to come next for the race?
Well, I think one of the things that we really saw this year that I'd like to keep building on is a lot of participation from the community, and in particular our local businesses. We had the Lamoth family from Broken Bow as a sponsor, but they also hosted a little after race party with a free beer for everyone who ran. And we had Koala Daycare, who had a team of like 36 people sign up. So we really had a lot of energy with the businesses and the community. We had REMAC staff a water table at the end of the race, and we'd like to keep building on that, having the businesses engaged, having other local groups. We had a lot of help from Eastchester cross country team and one of the local BSA troops in Tuckahoe. So we want to keep building that kind of momentum. In addition, we are thinking that we'd like to do a special premium for the 50th anniversary, maybe a jacket or something like that.
And how can Tuckahoe businesses who would like to be involved next year kind of raise their hand and put themselves forward as sponsors?
So you can always reach out to myself or John Galluzzi any time of the year. We're willing to talk about that, entertain any kind of ideas folks have. We think we could really use it as a draw to, like I said, we're getting people mostly in the community, but we are getting people from outside the community. We'd like to have people do the run and then stay for coffee and breakfast.
Right. Become aware of everything that's here in Tuckahoe.
Right.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.